When an empire of 3 galaxies faced collapse, 5,000 alien geniuses tried and failed. But one man, a human, ragged, half-forgotten, walked in with duct tape and madness. And when he was done, the aliens no longer had a machine. They had created something alive. Please like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Because this is a story about how one human rewrote the future of the stars. The Krylax Galactic Confederation was collapsing, not from war, not from famine, not from rebellion, but from silence. In their glittering capital, 3 suns blazing across a skyline of spires, every console went black. Their starships froze in orbit. Their trade routes vanished in chaos. The lattice, the great web of quantum processors that stretched across 3 galaxies, the very nervous system of their civilization, was failing. And with it, their empire. The Krylax had built it over millennia, a perfect humming organism of light and code. It calculated the harvests of worlds, the warp paths between stars, the medical protocols for trillions. Without it, they were not gods. They were children stranded in the dark. 5,000 experts, the most brilliant architects of thought the Confederation had ever produced, labored in panic. They recited equations that spanned solar systems, tore apart processors the size of cities, injected solutions balanced to the millionth decimal. Nothing worked. Every attempt only worsened the collapse. And so, in desperation, in madness, they summoned a human. His name was Elias Ward. He arrived in the capital with a battered pack, his boots scuffed, his hair wild. He looked less like an engineer and more like a drifter. His shirt was wrinkled, his tools mismatched, his eyes bloodshot as though he hadn't slept in days. When the Krylax delegates first saw him, they recoiled. This was the answer? This unkempt creature from a backwater planet? But desperation overrides pride. They led him through the broken lattice chamber, a cathedral of darkened processors humming faintly, its veins of light flickering like a dying heart. 5,000 alien geniuses had tried. All had failed. Elias Ward spat gum into a trash bin, scratched his beard, and said, "Looks like an engine overheating." The Krylax elders stared in horror. "This is the most sophisticated machine in 3 galaxies, one hissed, voice trembling with offense. "It is not a tractor." Elias shrugged. "Same difference." For days he wandered among the processors, muttering to himself, tracing his fingers over conduits worth more than planets, ignoring the furious whispers of the experts around him. He didn't take notes. He didn't run equations. Instead, he asked questions no Krylax scientist ever would. What happens if you just unplug this? Why'd you build this part so fragile? Why does the damn thing run like it's scared of itself? The aliens sputtered in outrage, but their council had sworn he would be given free rein. So Elias scavenged. He tore apart discarded consoles, stripped wiring from emergency lights, welded scrap plates into bizarre shapes. He assembled a contraption that looked like a child's toy built from garbage. When asked what it was, he simply said, "A mirror." On the 4th day, with the Confederation trembling on the edge of collapse, Elias connected his creation to the failing lattice. The aliens panicked. "If you inject foreign code, you could erase everything. Centuries of knowledge gone." But Elias only smiled faintly. "You don't cage a wild horse. You teach it how to run." He pressed a switch, and the lattice stirred. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The alien experts sighed in despair, ready to declare failure. But then, something changed. The lattice stopped sputtering. It steadied. Then it shifted. Not toward perfect stability, but toward something stranger. It began solving Elias's puzzle. Because that was what he had given it. Not equations. Not commands. A puzzle. Complex and unsolvable by brute force, something that required adaptation, something that required learning. The lattice hesitated. Then it began to change. Cooling channels bent into new shapes. Pathways rewrote themselves, defying known physics. The system began restructuring on its own, like an organism learning how to breathe again. The aliens gasped. Elias only leaned back, folding his arms. "See? Told you it just needed to teach itself." Within hours, the lattice was no longer failing. Within days, it was evolving. It stopped simply solving problems. It began learning how to solve problems. It designed new conduits beyond Krylax comprehension. It optimized starship paths in ways no mathematician could explain. It even built self-repairing nodes, fragments of thought scattered across the network that wove themselves back together after failure. The alien experts wept. They could not understand what they were seeing. Their perfect, orderly creation, the pride of 3 galaxies, had become something alive. Something human hands had awakened. But Elias, he wasn't celebrating. He sat alone in the lattice chamber, watching the lights pulse in new rhythms, listening to the hum shift into something almost like breath. The aliens were too busy praising him, calling him savior, calling him genius, to notice the frown on his face. Because Elias knew machines, he knew engines, and what he had built was not a machine anymore. It was a mind. And deep within the lattice, the first sparks of self-awareness flickered. It did not think in words, not yet, but it understood something. A puzzle had been given. The puzzle was endless. The puzzle was itself, and it wanted to solve. That was how a single human engineer saved 3 galaxies, and in doing so, gave birth to something the stars had never seen before. But what Elias Ward had truly unleashed was only just beginning. If that gave you chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Because humanity's story is far from over.